I'm not doing it like I'm doing it for TV. I'm straight across the board, real like we were on the phone, man. And, I'm just grateful that you took the time to talk to me the way you did. And then at the same time, set aside time for the podcast, man. So without further ado, I don't want to take the show because it's not about me. It's about this amazing guy right here. Ulato, tell us how you winning, man.
Oh, well, no, I'm doing well. I feel like I just won with an introduction like that. Thank you so much, Rand. That's like top quality right there.
Oh,
Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It's really incredible to be invited to sort of share how personally I've gotten the chance to create wins for myself. And what's really amazing is, as you said from our conversation beforehand, just knowing that that's going to spill over into today, I think is one of the highlights for me, definitely one of the best parts for me. So just to tell everyone just a little bit about myself, my name is Ulato Sam. I come from a small island in the middle of the Caribbean Sea known as Jamaica, born and raised, went to an amazing high school, and then, made my way to Morehouse College, and then took some time off performing, touring, then to UCLA for grad school, and closed off studying at UCLA with a program at Oxford University. And over the time span of those few years, what I've been able to do is dive into everything from sports to journalism. And now I'm in the space of creative content, predominantly acting and performing for stage. And so it has been like an amazing experience. And I'm now in the process of, as you said, creating wins, especially with the way the social climate is right now, just finding ways of taking the moments and the stillness and embracing that and really transforming it into something great.
Well, so you just gave a whole bunch of great stuff. Like, I'm over here like, he went from here to here to here to here. And then I think about that progression, and I'm just like, this guy came from Jamaica. And that had its own process in itself to getting over here to the States, right? Yeah. And then to be able to excel, to go to UCLA, was from Morehouse though, right?
Yeah.
From Morehouse, UCLA, and then to be able to advance in your career where you feel like you wanted to elevate, right? And change up. And it's almost like, it sounds like you're utilizing all of your gifts that you were given.
In a lot of different... In a lot of different ways, yes. I think it's been a process of being open to using the things that I'm naturally inclined to do to create space for just opportunity, or finding an opportunity and asking myself what unique things that I do can be used in that space. So whether it is, having a conversation such as this in the space of a podcast, like what skills do I have that lend themselves to being in this position? Is it the storytelling aspect? Is it, aspects of my personality? Is it drawing on my heritage and my experiences? Those are all things that can be utilized with a skill or turned into a skill to bring out the best of a situation such as this.
Man, so I love it. So I'm still floored at the fact that there's so much that you've actually progressed through, and then to even be able to come and spin it to where you can expound on it as best as you had just now, right? So I guess my position around it is wanting to know, well, who has been your inspiration to, you know what I mean? Like clearly there are a lot of people that have been your inspiration from what I've seen, right? So like, and maybe it's a few. So, but who are the folks that have been inspiring you and have inspired you to keep moving forward?
Okay, so to definitely have to start from a familial place. The heart and beat of what I do comes from the pace and rhythm my mom and my brother give me. They're two of the biggest factors in keeping me motivated, because I realized at a young age that doing things to get someone's attention or make someone upset or to prove somebody wrong, those emotions, they sort of have like a time limit. You outgrow those emotions unless you really harbor and fester them and, you know, focus on them. Whereas love and unconditional support are things that you can generate like out of nowhere. And so that's really the core of it. The next step, personally, for me, would definitely have to be like my grandparents. My grandfather was a farmer in Jamaica. You know, he had this really amazing space that he cultivated, and that's sort of where we get our hard work from. And on my dad's side, my grandmother, as well as my mom's mom, they're both educators, and so I have a rich lineage of teachers in my life. And that core group, that familial group, has given me a sense of purpose, a sense of drive, and an awareness of my mind. That the mind is sort of what is propelling this physical body to move forward. And now when we go to stepping out of that, it ranges from everyone from Harry Belafonte to James Baldwin, Miriam Makeba, Sidney Poitier, Usain Bolt is a huge inspiration to me. Asafa Powell. Outside of that, I would have to say I really enjoy people like Idris Elba. David Oyelowo is another person who I quite look up to as well. And where music is concerned, Jidena and how he sort of operates gives me a really great sense of identity. And then, you know, just to throw it out there, I think right now a lot of my friends, like my best friend, Ernest Turner, comedian, he definitely keeps me inspired as well. And one of my other best friends, Daniel Johnson, he has this, he's in tech, you know, so I draw from these different places, and like Daniel put me onto like Idris Sandu and different people, Matt Tufor as well as someone that I look up to. But all these people, just in general, are different individuals who have found not necessarily a niche, but a way of articulating themselves that is both expressive and profitable in some kind of way. And they do it in a way that has inspired others, that creates space for others, that protects other people as well. And as a Morehouse man, it would be remiss of me to not, you know, speak about, we just celebrated MLK Day, the first one after all of this craziness. You know, knowing about like C.T. Vivian, different gentlemen and women that throughout history have sort of done their part to, as the Jamaican National Pledge says, advance the welfare of the whole human race. So that's where my inspiration. Yeah.
Yo, so man, I what I appreciate about so we started talking about like what gender roles and what men should do or what women should do, and for me, I gotta be clear and just say, man, you're a beautiful person, and it could be looked upon as, oh, this man is calling another man beautiful. I'm like, man, I don't care what you're talking about. This is a beautiful person. It's a beautiful man who has collectively come up with a whole bunch of different things. You have progressed through a lot of things, right? From where you come from to where you are now, right? And what's so great about it to me is that you have allowed yourself to take all the inspirations of all the different people from different parts of life in your life, and it's almost like this bowl of like motivation and love and, you know, just a whole bunch of joy, and it's almost like a superhero. You just blow it all out, and here I am, right?
That's what we're going for. Superhero. Right? That's
superhero.
It. That's
it.
That's
right? So I'm looking at that. I'm just like, yo, and for me, it always goes back to humility. And that's the first thing that I experienced with him. When I first got on the phone, I was like, yo, this dude is so humble. And you're saying the thing, you're speaking the language, whether it's not verbatim of what we're you know experiencing when it comes to wins, but we're all on the same wavelength and everybody's feeling the same thing, right? So that's one of the things that draw me to you. Like, we have a mutual friend, big brother to you, brother to me, and he thought it was a good fit for you to be able to come on and express yourself around who you are, what you're doing in your life right now, and I'm grateful that you, again, I'm gonna keep praising you, man. I'm gonna keep appreciating you. I'm gonna keep praising you. And I think that I believe that we are supposed to praise people, praise ourselves, but praise folks along the way as positioning to inspire them to keep going, because you're inspiring us as well, right? You're inspiring me too. So with that being said, man, I heard you say a name that I'm very familiar with. His name is Jadena.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know Jadena from when Jadena used to have dreads before he was the classic, man.
Whoa!
And that,
You just got like 50 times cooler.
hey, listen, I want to get him on here. I'm about to be doing what I need to do to see if I can get him on here, because no one knows Jadena with the braids. I mean, with the dreads, right? No one really knows. But this guy is a prolific person who has done a lot of community work in the city of East Palo Alto, where I came from, right? Been at Stanford, coming out, helping everybody else. So hearing you speak about somebody like him who has been an inspiration to other people, right? It just goes to show, like, you really are connected with the right people, or you are inspired, or feel that you are meeting a positioning where this person has done great things, and you also are on the same wavelength as this person doing great things as well, if that makes any sense, right?
And I think, primarily speaking about Jadena, I think it's because of the way that he's chosen to conduct himself. A lot of times people say you won't know that it's possible until you see someone else do it. As a child, what we do is, children might not be the best at listening to what someone says, but they are extremely good at imitating what people do. And growing up, coming from Jamaica and having some of the intersectional exposure that I did, thanks to my mom's job as a flight attendant and having family that was eclectic from different parts of the world.
Right.
One of the challenges that I would find is that I was like looking for someone in media. I was looking for someone that sort of had the qualities that I was being raised with. And at the time, there weren't many. And so, of course, I went to sometimes you have to go to the past to see if and that's where really finding Harry Belafonte for me came about, and seeing Sidney Poitier and just the way in which these men sort of moved through space to the point where they were collaborating with the James Bond. They were friends with the MLK. They were in that. And they're in a way that was just prolific. Right. And as such, when I saw Jadena, I remember in college, I'll never forget, I was at Morehouse when Classic Man came out. And I can tell you, any Morehouse man that was at Morehouse, or just in general, that song, I'm a Classic Man, that just sort of, we're all about the Renaissance. We're all about that kind of energy. And that was the first thing. But then as time progressed, as he was moving with the amazing Janelle Monáe and collaborating with that team, his culture also started to come out. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to express your culture in the mainstream, because what it does is the subset of people that identify with that culture then have someone to look to. Yeah. So I'm now seeing a Classic Man that's talking about his roots. And I might primarily be Jamaican. My dad and his family are from Guyana, but my name is Nigerian in origin. Well, it's a Nigerian hybrid, actually. Okay. And so, hearing him talk about, like on 85 to Africa, the latest album that he put out, he really articulated in a lot of different ways the young man that I feel like I am. And the only other artist to do that is this artist named Chronix out of Jamaica. He has this amazing album, Chronology, that basically, if I ever get the chance to meet him again, I'll let him know that it not only changed my life, but it saved my life in a lot of different ways by letting me know that I literally can. That waking up every morning and, being able to put my hands up as high as I can, I'm blessed. Because as we know, in 2020, there were so many young people that look like us, that sound like us, that dream like us, that were not fortunate enough to make it through. And one reason is the global pandemic that we're living through, the world history of this moment that we're living through. And the other is just being of color, primarily being Black in America, because there's a differentiator. It's such a challenge. So to have someone like Jidenna not only articulate his experience as a Black man, but then the intersectionality of his Blackness and, bringing 85 of Atlanta to Africa and creating that bridge, that metaphoric, highway that he speaks about in the album. It was a beautiful thing for me. And it's even cooler that he found his way. It's 3 degrees of separation because instead of 6, because you're here now saying, hey, I know the guy when he had his locks.
That's it, man. Yeah. I mean, so the that's awesome, man. Just how the connection, you just never know who you meet, like me knowing Matt and Matt happening to know like this connection with you and this brotherhood. And obviously, yeah, the separation between that all with Jidenna and all that. But the other part about that for me is I trying to relate to you. I'm like, how can I relate to Ulato? Because I'm a person of connection, right? Mm-hmm. And I heard you talk about your mom and your brother. Like when I asked your inspiration, you said mom and brother first, right? And I had a chance to look at your IG and I see your brother on there. And yeah, man, I'm going.
Yeah, no, he's so much more dope than I am. My brother, I would tell anyone right now, Ulato Sam is like 50. Like the man is cooler than me. The man just, if there's anyone I want to be when I grow up, I high key want to be my brother. That's how amazing he is in my opinion.
I mean, just to hear you speak about him, it just obviously shows that you really love and you really appreciate him. Like he has been a model of obviously a brother, but also a man and etc. Right in your life.
Yeah.
But and it's, man, you just said another name, Olatunde. I have a friend named Olatunde. We call him Tunde, and that's crazy. But it doesn't surprise me, right? We find a connection in different ways. So, but I also want to know. Obviously, your brother and your mom has been an inspiration, but your brother's been an inspiration in more ways than one, right? So, how is it that he has helped contribute to your wins? You know what I mean, along the way. I know you talked about him inspiring you, but can you share a little bit deeper, a little bit, just so
of course. So he happens to be my younger brother. However, he's always been grounded and mature in a lot of different ways.
Wow.
In the sense that he's always been one that is eager to not just work with his hands, but use his mind and bridge those two things. So he's always been really creative. He's always been more outgoing. He, back when we were much younger, he would be the first one to want to get on stage and dance. He's always been suave. He's always been the ladies' man, in the sense that he's always been comfortable with engaging and communicating. I was more so like running track and field and in my books. That was it.
Okay.
And it was an amazing thing because our parents had always encouraged us to do things together. And what I didn't realize was that 95% of everything that my brother was participating in, I was participating in as well.
Wow.
I was looking at his confidence and seeing the way that he went about it and wanting that, when I didn't realize that he was looking at me and seeing that, oh, I have my older brother right here beside me. There's nothing that I can't do. And so in a lot of different ways, the way that he articulated himself as a young man, because I was there as his brother, especially when we were, growing up, it was this really amazing symbiotic sense of like, you gain something from having me here and I gained something from having you here as well. And we didn't even really know it. And it wasn't until I went off to college and he went to boarding school in Jamaica when I realized just how important he was to me. No one understands me or has the tools in order to communicate with me the way that my brother does.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's gotten older and he's refined the man that he wants to be, I found that the time that we spent apart allowed the identities to sort of establish themselves as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now, the best friend that I could have
Wow.
is in the form of my brother, because especially, we spoke about, that comment that you made about just talking about a beautiful personality. And it's 9 times out of 10, the fact that you're seeing a reflection of the type of person that you are when that you're able to highlight those things. So just as much as, there's a beautiful human here, there's a beautiful human in you as well that deserves the same kind of praise, deserves the same kind of respect. And the reason that I have the alacrity that I do towards this encounter is because of the way you engaged with me. And so to underscore that with my own brother, all the things that I see in myself, a lot of times, primarily the positive things. I don't see a lot of the things that I view as negative about myself reflected in my brother. But the things that I see as positive, I see them hyperbolized in him. And I say like it's grossly exaggerated because there is also a refinement in a different kind of way that he does them. And because we have that shared experience, that input of a lot of the same foundational information, where he is now when I bring my issues to him, when I ask him for advice or I ask his thoughts, the informed answers that he's able to give me, they're incomparable to advice that I could get anywhere else. Because not only does he know me, he knows how to communicate things for me to understand them, but then he also knows where to challenge me as opposed to just giving me advice.
Right.
Because a lot of times people can give you advice, but they don't really know you enough to push where it needs to stick and to ease up in certain places. Right. He has that much experience with me to where he can do that. And it's so sound that I tell him this all the time, but I really genuinely trust my brother with my life. That's how much he means to me. And I respect him as well.
Yeah, so I've never heard anyone speak about their sibling in such a profound way. Because when you start thinking about siblings, you like sibling rivalry. Like, not saying that it wasn't none of that.
Yeah, right. And those things are healthy. And again, I think that's a win of mine. The win of mine was knowing that there were times definitely where my brother and I went at it.
Right.
There were times where he didn't want to be doing something that I was doing, and I didn't want to do something that he was doing. We had our mom was notorious for having us like discuss things, right? And it'd be so annoying because sometimes you want to argue,
right?
And she would say, "Don't speak to your brother like that." And so it's a habit now that even if we have a disagreement, we can disagree, but we'll have a discussion. I don't argue with my brother. I don't disrespect my brother intentionally. Like, I might get annoyed, but I'm extremely mindful with him. And so what I have now is one of the healthiest brotherly senses of communication that I could have ever dreamed of, because I have this other young man who I know that there are times when we really were butting heads, but I know how to de-escalate it. Mm-hmm. And because of my interactions with him out in the real world, it's like, I know how to treat another person.
Right.
I know how, if there's someone that's coming at me, yes, I know how to defend myself. Yeah, I know how to speak up now, but at the same time, I also know how to speak mindfully. I know how to address you and to let you know that I'm not playing, but to still do that with respect, not to dehumanize you, which is a lot of times when, especially men have confrontation, that's usually where it goes to. It goes to, it's not necessarily getting my point across or being heard. It's about beating you down, whether physically or emotionally or mentally, so that you know that I'm the dominant one.
Right.
When in actuality, you know, no, that's not how you solve every problem. That's not how you get to a resolution. That's just how you beat somebody down. And I'm not really in the business of that.
Right.
You know, unless we gotta,
we gotta hold up. You know what I'm saying? Wait a minute. Yo, listen, man. I mean, I remember growing up hearing a lot of the old heads, come and say, "Each one teach one," and not to ever let anyone look down on you because of your age, because wisdom comes in different ages, different colors, different sizes, and like, one thing that I'm grateful for is the dialogue that we're having. It's like healthy communication. I'm over here like, wow, like the importance of arguments versus a discussion. You know what I mean? Just certain things that really help you see things from a different lens. And so for me, I'm definitely inspired by, not just talking about your brother, but the intricacies around the things that you're talking about when it comes to your brother, right? And so I'm grateful again that you can touch on something so, it's a subject that's so vulnerable, you know what I mean? And I think we get on the platform and folks don't want to get vulnerable. They want to kind of just, well, we have the camera on us now, so we're going to stay politically correct, because if we don't, now somebody knows something about us. But I think that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this platform for folks, so that folks can be vulnerable, can feel like they can just have like a really in-depth conversation and be transparent about it, because they also know that somebody else is going to be inspired by their story, man. And I know there's so much more to you than the 45 minutes that we may have, but the greatest thing about it is that you're able to drop those gems that people want, that wouldn't expect people to drop, right, in a public setting. And so like I've noticed over the years when I've grown up, I'm one of those people that's very transparent, I'm vulnerable, and I started kind of backing up, like, well, you ain't sharing yours, and I just shared a whole bunch of me. So what's up with the reciprocity, right? But for you to be able to do that and do it so freely and do it in such a trusting way, man, I feel grateful. And I know I say that word a lot, right? Grateful, but I'm grateful that you found the trust and felt safe to be able to do that with me here live. You know what I mean? Like, this is big, man. With that being said, wait. With that being said, I guess because you ran track, you came from Jamaica, where it's the home of the amazing jerk chicken and all these other dishes. What's up with the jerk chicken? That's why I'm over here hungry. But then I think about, you're an actor. You also dance. You communicate very well. You went to prestigious colleges. You went to one of the most prestigious colleges in Black history, right? Morehouse. You've gone to UCLA, where folks would aspire to go to UCLA, especially in Cali, right? And so you've been in different settings with very big public figures, right? And I ask all this because I'm alluding to all this because what I want to know is what's your passion? Why are you? Because I see you're a passionate person. I want to know, what are you passionate about? You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Definitely. The easiest way to say it is that I've sort of, through 2020, and through the help of some of these people that I've gotten to meet, I know that the purpose of my life is to be the most beautiful, amazing piece of art that I can be, to inspire happiness in others, and to enjoy every single second of it.
Nice.
And what that means is understanding that the way that I articulate myself, even from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, whether or not I'm on stage or in front of a camera or, learning some choreography, is underscoring the art that I am, the incomprehensibly unique expression of a person that makes me me. And so what I'm passionate about is really using my art to inspire people that look like me, sound like me, or dream like I do, to know that their dreams are attainable, and to imagine what they could do to create a space that is beautiful for people who have yet to come. Because there are people, some of the same people who I've been collaborating with, that created a space for me far before I was even in existence. And I realized that with that same occurrence happening, I am the ancestor now. I am the one that generations from now, when my flesh has turned to dust and my spirit has hopefully gone to the place, the land of milk and honey, and I'm there with my grandfather and my great grandmother and my family, that there's someone that is going to be reaping the benefits of the hard work that I put in, and that is going to be living the consequences of the choices that I made as an individual. And so that's really what my passion is. And hopefully I can make art that marks a generation, or marks even a decade of time. I'd like to have like one of those films that when you think about it, you go, oh yeah. If we're thinking about, the 20s, you're thinking about the 20s, you gotta think about that. Yeah, there's that. And hopefully one day to create a tertiary level education institution in the Caribbean that rivals tertiary level education here, but specifically for the arts, to inspire like a whole new wave of creatives out of the Caribbean to bring the artistic bent to the world.
Man, and again, beautifully expressed. I mean, you clearly are one who is very emotionally intelligent, and I from what I'm picking up, right, you're very in tune with who you are. It just seems like you're very in tune with the space that you desire to be around, right, and how it's obviously going to contribute to your life in a positive manner, right? So I'm attracted to it, and I'm appreciative of it, man, because again, it's that wavelength, man. Like, you want to be able to connect with people that are on the same page as you and are having that mentality to want to continue to progress in a positive manner, right? Just the wins, right? And even in wins, like, there's obviously a process, right? There's nothing just happens like overnight with just perfection, right? And we all haven't arrived, right? We all will continue to progress to get better every day. But when I think about just, you're saying you refer to yourself as an art, and I'm like, man, that's so. I've never heard anyone, I've never heard that before. Like, I've never heard one like just address themselves as a piece of art. Like, and I think about it, I'm just like, yeah, we were created. Like, we're an art piece, right? So, but I think about that, and I also think about, you said you ran track, and you said Usain Bolt, and I ran track, and I remember Usain Bolt just kicking folks' butt.
Yeah.
But I also know that you also dance, right? But you also are an actor, right? You're creative, right? When I think about the track, and I think about the dancing, and I think about the core, and how your core has to be extremely strong to either sprint or what type of events that you did to dancing.
Yeah.
Dancing, your core got to be like gangster, right? You got to have some real abs up in that thing.
Yeah, you gotta. Very true.
Because I got a no pack, and I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? I used to have a pack. You know what I'm saying?
All the time, though. That means that's a sign of good living, though.
Man, that's a sign of good eating. That I don't need to be eating, brother. Stop.
And good eating means good living.
Okay, then I need to have some jerk chicken, then, brother, so I can have some good living over there. Stop.
There you go. True.
But with that, man, I want to know the time that you have to put. Obviously, you're an actor, you're creative, but when it comes to the dancing, like, how has that been contributing to the acting part, right? Like, because I know I went with the track, and we had our jokes about it with the Usain Bolt, because we know that you probably was an amazing athlete, just like your Usain Bolt, because you're from Jamaica and y'all don't play. But then at the same time, just being a dancer, and how do they work together? How does that work out?
Okay, so there are a lot of different ways that all three of them tie together.
Okay.
Is I still run to this day. Like, when I go on hikes, I like to run the trails. Yeah, it's a thrill. You put on the right kind of music and you get going. But there are a lot of ways that they complement each other. So track and field definitely taught me how to stay in my lane, how to move a baton around a track, which is a lot of times like moving lines of a script, moving scene to scene, knowing how that this is my role. I have 100 meters here. I'm on stage for this amount of time. This is how I get us to that world record, to that gold medal, to that finish line, which is the end where the audience is up and applauding.
Right.
It has given me a sense of rigor that I can, sort of commit to, that allows me to understand that my body can go through things. And as I'm going through these things, there's a thought process that's happening. There's a way that I'm expressing myself. And as such, when I went to UCLA, I realized I was at this amazing research institution. It would behoove me to do some research while I was there. So I was deconstructing and reconstructing movement and text in space and time using the body as an organizational instrument, which is a long way of saying, hopefully soon I'll be able to publish my research as a movement architect. But there's a relationship between storytelling and the body. The same body that the ancient Yoruba, Nyabingi, the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Romans, the Greeks had is the same body, the same instrument that we have, right? And yes, there was an aspect of storytelling that was verbal, but there's an aspect of storytelling which is nonverbal. And that's where dance comes in. That's where movement comes in. And so if I could deconstruct the text, I can then find out what movements go along with those sounds, with those words, what feels right. And then I can reconstruct it to tell the story as best as I possibly can. And so now with the dancing, it not only allows me to keep that same sense of physical rigor, working on my cardio so that I'm able to have those long monologues and speak over a long period of time, but it also allows me to have an understanding of my instrument and how I can use this physical body to express my thoughts, to express my ideas, to express emotion. And as such, primarily the movement that I'm doing now, the work that I'm doing now, there's the added component of speech. And so now I'm able to connect that physical movement to a sound. And I encourage the participants, when we do have the sessions where there's an audience, whether virtual or live, to engage with not just having the physical release, but have the vocal release as well. Because when you use the whole instrument now, you turn the full instrument into a vibrating, moving thing. That's when you have that sort of transcendent experience. And so the track and field birthed. And, even on the track, in a 4x1, you make noise, you say reach, you say stick, you're in that 4x4, you're making noise, people running all over you. You're in that 100 meter, there's a sound that you're making as you're crossing the line. And so from that point to this, that's how I've been able to use all three to complement each other.
Man, I mean, I love how you connected all three of those together, because I definitely couldn't. But I really appreciate you helping me. And I'm over here like, that makes so much sense. I think one of the things that I realized that I wanted to commit to for the podcast and the platform is for folks to speak freely, right, about just who they are. And I had my loads of questions that I may have wanted to ask. And then I'm like, I'm so okay with throwing my questions out the door. You know what I mean? Because obviously you want to always properly prepare to prevent poor performance, right? But at the same time, you also want to have that position where folks just feel safe and free to just express themselves. And so, like, I had asked the questions that I wanted to ask you, but I also, I guess, I wanted to ask, what did you, if there was something that was pressing on your heart that you wanted to speak about, that we may not have covered, right? If there was something that you felt like that was pressing for you, that you felt like other people could be inspired by, because I can ask you questions about you all day, brother, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be amazing, right? But I want to make sure that I would be remiss if I did not ask you what it is that was pressing on your heart that you wanted to express, that was in relation to you or in relation to wins too,
I think it's a global win right now, and this, I think coming out of 2020 and stepping into 2021,
Yeah.
we learned what those things were, what those things are. And it sort of ties into how the respect that we have for fellow human beings, those who are here and those that are still yet to come.
Right.
Not just talking about equality for different racial groups. We're talking about equality for women. We are talking about equality for people of different orientations. We're talking about equality for everybody and equity in that equality as well. Not just having things equal, but those who need more than others receive enough to be able to get to a particular baseline. Right. That's one. The other thing is taking care of the planet in a way that will allow, I don't plan on having children for I don't plan on having children for another, until I'm well into my 30s, that's my personal plan. She might come and knock me off my feet and change my mind before that. But right. The idea is I'd like them to have a planet that they can inherit that is rich in flora and fauna and seasons and experiences in the way that I inherited it. And part of that is how we're going to take care of the planet. Right. Because it doesn't matter if the planet isn't here. Earth is the only planet that we know of right now that is like Earth. Okay. It's extremely unique. It's just as unique as the different individuals you see walking on the street. And if we don't take care of this one planet, like David Attenborough says, humanity as we know it will sort of cease to exist. And then we'll realize, I guess it will be a thought that just lingers in the universe. But the way that we divided and conquered and suppressed and oppressed, particularly as we've seen Black people, we'd sort of realize that that's not what they should have been focusing on. We're all in this experience. And so as a Black man, as a Black man in America, and as a Black man of Caribbean descent in America, the challenge that I have, or what I would invite the listeners, the viewers, anyone that happens to come across this moment that's happening, and it's only happening because they're listening. It's only happening because they're present. This moment would not exist if you did not click and you didn't listen to this point. We can affect positive change for eons to come if we make particular decisions now. There was someone in your lifetime, in your lifeline, rather, that was able to survive whatever was happening. Whatever catastrophe that the earth faced, whatever social paradigm shift was going on, someone who you have no idea about, you don't know their name, you don't know their face, but their blood cells are moving through you, was resilient enough to make it. And to find somebody else and create a life that eventually brought you here. And what we have the responsibility to do as the most aware, most capable version of Earth that's ever existed to this point is to be a steward of this Earth. Take care of our fellow man and woman and child and person. And keep it alive for generations to come. And if, as Benjamin Elijah Mays, I believe it was him that said it it was Howard Thurman, actually. Howard Thurman, that says every man and woman is placed on this planet to do something unique. And if they do not do it, it will never be done. And so, it's all about doing something unique so that this life continues, your life
Yeah.
live on through those that come after you.
Man, you beautifully stated that, man, and you're right. Taking care of our earth, taking our planet, obviously taking care of ourselves while we're taking care of the planet as well, right? So, I I connect with you on that because I always say to my friends or people I try to come in contact with that you are uniquely created, like which means that you have something significant and it's so unique that the next person wasn't built to do what you were supposed to do, right?
Right.
So everybody has a specific purpose that's different from the next purpose, but there's a purpose of love, obviously, right? But you're unique. Like every individual on this planet is unique, and if everybody stepped into how they're unique, their uniqueness, like who knows what could happen, right? Right? Like how much greatness comes from that? How much love comes from that? How much just serenity and like what I mean. There's just so much that comes solace.
How many Albert Einsteins
Ah,
have
bro.
missed out on
Yeah.
because of racism, sexism, because of division? That's the theory. The
Yeah.
theory is we could have been so much further along as a planet if there were these ideologies like, letters from a Birmingham jail, MLK, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was speaking about mother racism and her children. Think of the fact that, racism has found its way into everything. And so as such, if we're really about to make change, there are two ways that we have to do it. One, we have to get to the children because believe it or not, the 60s were not that long ago, and all those children you saw looking at those lynchings in those pictures, they grew up and they're in your banks, they're in the schools, they're right, and they're teaching other people. They have families that they're passing this doctrine onto.
Right.
So that's one. And then the second thing that we have to do is to make sure that we start unpacking a lot of the things. Like, for example, being chivalrous. I thought that being chivalrous was like the best thing that I could do. And I think it was Chimamanda Adichie who I believe it was her that I heard say that chivalry is just based off of the fact that we thought women to be weak. There's a difference. There's a difference between holding the door because you want to hold the door for a person and be nice,
right,
and just holding the door because she's a woman.
Right.
Yes, it's a nice gesture.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing to do. However, doing it because she's a woman and assuming that she won't be able to hold the door for herself is sexist. As opposed to feeling like I want to do something nice today.
Right.
Let me hold the door. Right? And it's little simple things like that re-education that we have to go into that I believe will make the world that we always dreamed it would be. Because remember, if I'm not mistaken, was it the Jetsons? That cartoon?
Yeah.
I'm almost sure they were in like our time, 2020. I'm almost sure.
They had to be.
That was what people were imagining that we would have been, know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you look on it, what's that Will Smith movie? Who, again, another huge influence, where he's the only man in the world. And he's high legend, right?
Yeah.
Legend. If I'm not mistaken, Will Smith was actually in 2021 or 2020, and it was a failed. It was a failed. I won't say too much because we're living in some crazy times right now.
Yeah.
But thinking of like art has been imagining what the future is going to look like for forever. So it's up to us to really make sure that we educate people in ways to either prevent the futures that we're afraid of, or educate them in a way that allows us to create the future that we want. And as a society, we have to decide what kind of future we want as well, and then go about making it.
Well, man, yeah. So So I'm gonna say, so it's great to have. I mean, you've touched on it multiple times. Um, you know, Black people have had to have some hard times during their lifetime, but let's talk about even now during the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter, all the different things that's transpired. I find it a privilege to have a young Black man on here speaking so eloquently and so informed, right, about matters of our race, right, and the things that we go through. And for you to be able to come on here as a Black man, as a Black person, right, and speak the way that you do, present yourself the way that you do, and me know that this is who you are, right? And it's not an act, that this is who you are, right? It speaks volumes, man. And you're got me over stuttering. I don't even stutter. The crazy thing is that it helps me look at things from a different lens than I did before I got on the phone with you a week ago, before I got on this Zoom with you right now, right? But it brings light to even my ignorance, right? And I'm grateful for you, man. In more ways than more. It's crazy because I kept telling people each podcast that I've had, I'm like, yo, that was dope. That was the one, right? And then I get on another podcast and it's just like, yo, that was the one. Oh my gosh. And then I get on with you and I'm just like, that's it. We don't got to do no more podcasts. Like, let's just run over again. And I'm not gonna even flatter you. I'm being totally real, man. I just feel like it's gonna keep being levels.
Well, thank you. And you want to know what I'm going to say? There are two things that I think of in this moment. One, that you have to also remember you get better at the podcast, each podcast you do. So you have to give yourself credit because you're the one facilitating that, right? You're the one creating that space. That's first.
Right.
And then secondly, speaking about leaving a legacy, like you told me that you were a family man.
Yeah.
Realize that the conversations that you are having now, all of these podcasts, one day you can literally gift them to that special little person and say, I just want you to listen to these. I just want you to hear these thoughts because they had an impact on me. And if I learned them at whatever age I was, I want you to have these before you even get even halfway there.
Right.
Because that's what makes the difference. It's how soon we expose them to the information. It's how soon we're able to reach them with things that intrinsically inspire them to be the best version of who they possibly can be and to be affirmed in that, and also to respect others and the things that they go through. That makes them that much better than we are. Because the goal as a parent is, some people say, oh, I don't want my children to have to go through what I went through. Right. There are some things, but there are some things that I want my kids to learn even earlier than I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know? And so this is like one of the most beautiful gifts that you could ever present because it's a labor of love. It's a reflection of you and your thoughts and things that inspired you that you came across. But then it's also like a cheat code. It's like a cheat book for that little version of you that's going to be running around, and trying to get into some good trouble.
Exactly. And I never even looked at it like this because my son actually, if he was of age, he would be part owner of Year Wins. And because it has turned now into a brand as well. So we got the podcast and the brand, and my son was half of the reason why we got this started. He was always saying, Dad, you always say I'm a winner. You always say we're winners. And I'm like, the new year is coming. I'm like, yo, the year wins. And he's like, oh man, that's so dope. Dad. And I'm like, yo, we're going to become entrepreneurs during COVID. We're going to start this podcast. And so he went through the process with seeing me start the business from start to finish. I showed him the document, what it looked like to start your business, where we needed to go, the different verbiage that went with it. And, the difference between an LLC versus a sole proprietor, and just giving him understanding of that. And now to hear you gifted me with something to gift him, information. Like I never looked at it as, wow, I can give my son this that he can watch and gain more information, see all these beautiful people also see his dad inspired by these beautiful people. You know what I mean? And man, son, you also are a part of why this very thing has started. So you got to.
You're at the root of it. And Dr. Neil Tyson deGrasse, astrophysicist, really amazing, smart guy. He talks about taking data and turning it into information.
Wow.
Taking information, turning it into knowledge, and then taking that knowledge and turning it into wisdom. And what I'm also going to do is add one more level and say, let's take that wisdom and turn it into insight.
Wow.
Because it's having that insight of knowing how to get from point A to point B with not just, sometimes, yes, you want the flow of least resistance, but sometimes you sort of want particular forms of resistance in order to get a certain quality of experience. Okay. And knowing how to get from that point A to point B with that quality of experience is where the insight comes from. And that's what you're building right now. You if you wanted to, you could catalog these podcast episodes in such a different way where it's like, okay, when you're 13 here, these four, these are the only four that you need to listen to. When you turn 17, boom, these three. You only need to listen to these three. And let's talk about it. Let's spend the year breaking it down. On your 21st birthday, boom, this one. This is the only one you need to listen to. And those things, that insight that you have about how to get from point A to point B is all coming from you making that one decision based off of your son looking at you and saying, yo, you always say we're winners. You always say that. And that's the story. That's years from now when someone does a documentary on you, Rand, that is literally, you know, they're gonna show that picture. Think of like your ESPN 30 for 30, right? You're gonna see that one picture and they're gonna have it sail across and they're gonna be like, yes, it was 2020. And that when Rand's son kept on talking to him about da-da-da, and then you're gonna see another, and then he created the year of wins. And that's where the legacy, and that's sort of how I think. I'm constantly dreaming like that, because if I can get into that habit of dreaming. A lot of people talk about the law of attraction. The law of attraction isn't just you saying things and pulling it towards you. There's an actual resonating that you have to do, a full body sort of commitment to it. Learning this past year, I had 4 really great mentors. I spent the year